is CW Iowa Live.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to CW Iowa Live. It's Jackie and Michelle this morning. Lou has the day off, so we decided to head into the kitchen to get creative with some watercolors because you were talking about the fact that this month it's
July is National Global Watercolor Month, so
everybody's
it's just a great way to kind of bring about some more awareness of another art medium that we can all benefit from. And I think, you know, watercolors for me personally are, I've worked with all kinds of different materials, projects, pretty much anything and everything. And watercolors are something that, I never really got that excited about. And I think it was just because we just think back to the little trays we get when we're kids, just colored water. We're moving some colored water around. But when you start to actually work with some higher end watercolors that have better pigments, and then you learn more about the types of papers and things that there are, it changes the whole experience for you. And watercolors are now one of my favorite things to play around with, to travel with. It's great because it's compact, it's very portable, it's not messy. So
not messy.
So it's something that I always have some watercolors with me and a little sketchbook, and I can always, you know, add color to things without having that mess of acrylics or some of the other.
I agree. What I remember is when I was in elementary school and painting different pictures and making
and you're usually working on printer paper, construction paper, and it's just, you're just kind of, it just didn't have the same,
you got a wet piece of paper.
It just didn't move me all that much, but now it really does. And watercolors come in a lot of different shapes and sizes.
So some of this might look familiar, and I'm like, really, this is watercolors?
Isn't that gorgeous?
I mean,
okay, and these are a little bit
palette.
pricier. These are, I think this is probably a $30-some palette of colors.
That would last you a while, wouldn't
it? And the watercolors they cut, yes, this will last you a very long time. And the pigments are really rich. It changes the experience when you invest in a little bit better quality of supply if you're able to. But they come. This is called a pan watercolor, and just like some of the others that have the little cakes, and then you'll wet
come in different sizes.
Yep, to get your color. Then there's also liquid watercolors, which are also very vibrant. And these you would just pour into a palette that I have here.
Okay.
And you can dilute them and create, you know, a color as rich or as translucent as you want for that.
I'm going to make a mess on a Monday. So
that's okay. That's what it's all about. And then you have, there's also tube watercolors. So those are going to squeeze out onto your palette and be a little bit more reminiscent of a paint.
Okay.
There's also watercolor crayons. And watercolor pencils, and these, so that changes how you're able to move that color around on your paper. So the colors, for instance, the crayons, you're going to draw, make your designs. It does. And then what you'll do to activate that color and to move it around on your paper is to get it wet with a paintbrush.
But it's a specific crayon. You can't just grab any crayon.
No, because those are generally going to be made out of a wax, which is going to be a resist for you. So,
all right, I'll play with my crayon.
And we also want to talk about the papers that you are best suited for watercolors.
Okay.
And they're, you can get tablets of paper, you can get sketchbooks that are made for watercolor papers, and they are a heavier body of a paper. They come in different weights. There's cold press, hot press, and if there's 140 pound, there's 90 pound. And what that means is if you put 500 sheets of paper, a ream of paper together, it's going to weigh 140 pounds. So it's going to be a much heavier paper, the 140 pound versus the 90 pound.
Okay, so so you prefer the little bit heavier.
And and it just depends on, you know, they're going to be a little bit pricier, what you're going to be using them for. If you're going to be just kind of playing around with things and just experimenting with the medium itself, get some that are a little bit less expensive, and it will give you you know, a better way to kind of just experiment, and then you can use those in some of your art journals or what have you, the different things that you're playing around with.
Okay.
You can also use your watercolors on wood, and you'll see on this I have here, it creates a really nice wash or a stain.
Do you have to do anything to it?
No, you just want to make sure that it doesn't have any sort of residue on it. You know, kind of lightly sand it, open up the pores on the wood. You want to use a wood that has a minimal amount of grain pattern in it, but the watercolors will do a nice job of creating a stain on that.
Say they pop a little bit more than I thought they would.
Right. So now get this wet.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to
I got my color.
Put some.
Ooh. What are you working on?
Of the wet. the liquid colors here. I know, this is how I like to play.
Just kind of going wild.
Exactly. But now on this piece of paper, and you can't really see it, but I drew with a white crayon, and this was just a regular wax crayon. And that's going to create a resist. So when I put my color on there.
So you already drew something on there with a white crayon, so
right.
that the oil of that crayon is already on there, or did you do it with a watercolor crayon?
No, the watercolor crayon, of course, is going to dissolve, but if you use just a regular wax crayon, that's going to create what's called a resist. So you can use masking fluid or different things, and then that watercolor won't. Well, this isn't doing a very good job of my example. Maybe I did grab the wrong crayon, but here I can redeem myself very quickly. This is you draw on there with your white wax crayon, not the watercolor crayon, and then put your watercolors over the top of it, of course, and that's not going to show through.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then you can also
it's almost like a tie-dye effect.
This is. It's really, what I recommend for people, you'll see on these sheets, just create some little squares and start playing. Create just different designs. There doesn't have to be any end result in mind, or just so that you get a feel of how the colors move around on the paper. If you're working on, if the paper's wet before you apply your color, if it's dry, it really changes kind of how you can move that color around.
How do you work with
and
multiple
the different effects?
Colors? Like you're showing different colors here. Do you have to wait for the first color to be completely dry?
It depends. It depends on what type of a look. If you want them to kind of blend together and let the, the colors themselves will create a cool, effect and look. If they're wet and dripping into each other, you can use rubbing alcohol. See, when you put that on, can you kind of see that?
It kind of diffuses.
Yeah, it's.
Now we're getting
create some splatters
now we're getting into
on
chemistry.
There.
No one told
rubbing
me this
alcohol,
was
salts, but it's just you just want to play. It really is all about playing with the color, moving things around, and then with these the different samples that you're creating, you can then use those for other projects. You can use them. You can kind of rip them up and use them in collage projects. But it just gives you a completely different look than when you're working with your acrylics. And you want to blend, put your colors together, see how the reds and the yellows create the oranges and how they all mix, add some blues to that. That's where you really get some cool effects with the colors.
How fun. And love that, learning that there's different mediums to this.
There's lots of different ways, and you can use the crayons with the pencils and use them all, in one project, because you're going to get different strokes and different looks and feels of the colors that you're using. You can also add other, some pastels. You can use inks. You want to use a waterproof ink, of course, because it's so it doesn't bleed into your design.
Makes sense.
But yeah, they are a lot of fun, and I have this little palette right here is one that I always throw into I have a little pouch that I take everywhere I go, and it has some colored pencils.
So watercolored pouch.
Yeah, and then so if you're having to wait, if you're at a restaurant, if you're at, we use it on the airplane. So when I'm with I have the kids with me, you get the little glass. All you need is a little water. And either you already have some in a water bottle, or they come by with a little glass of water. And so our setup on the airplane is a little palette like that, the sketchbook, and we can really go to town and create some fun art while we're traveling.
Absolutely
and
love it.
not
so
messy.
If you're hanging out with kids today and looking for some, say, hey, it's watercolor month. We're going to go dig into some watercoloring. If people want more details on how they can get involved with some DIY projects.
Then go to Remake Life. There's also the Iowa Watercolor Society has some great information, and some wonderful artists, and lots of exhibits. So if it's something that you kind of want to go get some inspiration from, they can guide you on different places of some watercolor arts where their art's being featured, and get some more ideas and different ways to use things.
Dig into your creative side.
Love it, love it.
Watercolors.
So fun.
Who knew? You're watching CWI Live here on Channel 23.